Tissue Please by Lisa Kopelke. Frog and his friends did everything together. At recess, they played hopscotch and jumped rope together. In class, they sat at the same table and studied together. And when they had runny noses, they sniffled and snuffled together. They announced as they wiped their noses on their arms. Mr. Sage replied. After school, Frog and his friends rode their bikes to dance class together. They were practicing for their recital. Frog loved his ballet class. Lately, he had a hard time concentrating. He still had a runny nose, which made it difficult to dance. Frog rang out. When his friends heard him, they remembered their noses were runny too. Soon the whole class was one huge chorus of sniffles and snuffles as they wiped their noses on their arms. Miss Tutu was so disgusted, all she could say was yuck. At home, Frog was enjoying his dinner, potato bug soup with fish crackers. He was in the middle of a big slurp when he realized he needed to sniffle. Frog started. That's not polite at the dinner table, interrupted his father. Frog's mother leaped out of the room and came back with a box of tissues. Please use this instead, she suggested. Frog blew his nose into the tissue and was amazed at how well it worked. His nose felt great. And here is an extra to keep in your pocket, added his father, just in case. It was the day of the big dance recital. Frog and his friends jumped across the stage into place. The crowd oohed as the curtain rose. In the middle of his grand plie, Frog's nose began to run again, so he sniffled. It didn't work. Frog was getting ready for a gigantic snuffle when he noticed his teacher watching him off stage. Frog suddenly remembered. A tissue. Frog quickly hopped over and took a tissue out of the box on the piano and hopped back into place. He blew his nose and finished his plie in one grand move, waving the tissue high above his head. Frog's friends were inspired. They each pirouetted across the stage, grabbing a tissue mid-twirl. They blew in a loud symphony. Then one by one, they waved their tissues over their heads, danced over, and flung them into the trash. Miss Tutu was so proud, all she could say was, "Bravo!" The audience was impressed. "Encore," they yelled. And from that day on, the dance of the tissue box fairies was the big finale of every dance recital. Felicity Flew Visits the Zoo by E.S. Redmond. All of the animals down at the zoo are snuffling and snorting and sneezing. Achoo! The lions won't roar and the tigers just mew. The hyenas aren't laughing, they're crying, boo-hoo. The zookeeper honestly hasn't a clue why all of the animals have a green hue. Their temperatures soared past 102, and they're sluggish and sleepy and slightly subdued. Let me tell you how all of this trouble ensued. It started one day with a trip to the zoo, when a pale, sniffly girl named Felicity Flew wiped her red, runny nose without a tissue. Her fingers were sticky with green, gloppy goo when she reached out her hand to pet the emu. She left behind handprints of green residue on the llamas and lizards and ostriches too. On the giraffe and the red kangaroo. All the green handprints. and on every monkey and elephant too. If you think that was bad, well, she wasn't quite through. She left tiny green handprints all over the zoo on the peacocks and penguins and pink cockatoos, on flamingos and toucans and owls that flew, on a blue-footed booby and rare jibberoo. She petted the panda who hid in bamboo, and both mountain goats from the hills of Peru. She startled the zebra by obscuring his view when she covered his eyes and then shouted, "Guess who?" When the clock by the exit read 2:15, Felicity felt she was finally through. The zookeeper smiled when she sniffled thank you, not knowing she'd caused such a hullabaloo. That's how it happened, every word of it's true. Her cold got so big that they named it the flu. You may not believe me, but if I were you, I think I'd go bowling and not to the zoo.